Hello, beautiful souls. I'm back to share with you today something that my guides asked me to share a couple of weeks ago. And I'm going to speak today about self-love and how it feels to be in self-love. And the message is going to come from my book, Conversations with a Tree. The guides asked me to share a passage in here that the tree Henrietta wrote about the 3 A's of love. And it talks about what self-love really feels like and what it means. And the wisdom that comes from this tree is really quite profound. And so I'm going to offer that. And then at the end, I will do a light language session to help us to open up to self-love and really anchor that in for ourselves, because truly it's the foundation of love. So, I'll start with this message that came from the tree called Henrietta. And this book was written back in 2012 when I was going through a huge transformation in my life. And Henrietta really supported me through so much of that. And one day I was talking to her, and she often talked about love. The first chapter in my book really is full of messages about love. And again, the profound wisdom that the trees have in that regard. But I'll read the passage to you, and then I'll go back and highlight some of the areas before I go into the light language to restore that self-love within ourselves. So she started by saying to me, "What do you think love is?" And my answer was, "It is the unconditional appreciation for all life." And she replied, "That is a very good answer. It surprises me, actually. You have a good grasp of what love is. So we will use your words to speak of love. First, you use the word unconditional. That is an important aspect of real love. There are no conditions. You do not have to behave a certain way or meet any expectations of another. Real love accepts all that is. So that is a good word to use to start the definition. Then you speak of appreciation. Again, a very wise choice. Appreciation does not speak of neediness, which is what many humans equate love with. Appreciation also has no conditions. When one is in appreciation for all life, then there is regard for all life. If you are appreciating something, you cannot be critical of it. So, if humans could find the place of appreciating everything and everyone, the world would be full of love." And then she asked, what else could we say of love? And I replied, we could say that it is acceptance. Yes, indeed, acceptance is another aspect of love. This is the key to self-love, which is where all love comes from. If you accept all aspects of who you are, then you will be loving yourself. When you are loving yourself, there is no need to criticize or belittle yourself or others. So, acceptance means allowing. You allow yourself to be who you are, and you allow others to be who they are as well. We now have in our definition the words appreciation, acceptance, and allowing. The 3 A's of love. We would like you to remember this and use it for positive self-regard. For you see, love is the foundation to happiness. It does not come from another. It does not come from possessions. It does not come from accomplishments. It comes from the appreciation and acceptance of the self. And when you are in appreciation and acceptance of the self, then you allow the self to express honestly in the world. There is no need to put on a face of what the world wants to see. There is no need to try to be someone else, believing that you are less than perfect. There is no need to try and fit a mold. You are the mold of you. It is when you try to fit another's perception of what your mold should be that you suffer. End the suffering by accepting that you are perfect just the way you are. Maybe you do not always behave in ways that you like, but when you start truly accepting and appreciating yourself, you will stop behaving in that way. The more you love yourself, the less unlovable you become based on society's interpretations of love. The more you love yourself, the less you have to act out, crying out for love. You have it within. Searching for love outside the self is never successful. And she goes on with that message. And so I feel that that message very firmly explains the qualities of what it really means to be loving ourselves. And I like the piece where she says, the key to self-love is acceptance, which is where all love comes from. And I think in our society, we don't really understand that. We think that love maybe comes from another person, and that can only lead to as much love as they love themselves. And so if we're expecting love to come from another person, and they're not fully loving themselves, then they may not be able to meet the love that we're looking for, and then things start to go awry because they're no longer showing us what we're looking for and what we're searching for outside of ourselves. So when we look outside and we really are looking for love as a matter of need, we need that person to fill something within us that is empty, and we're looking in the wrong direction to find it. We can only find it from within ourselves. And this also applies to loving another person. We can really only love another person as much as we are loving ourselves. And I know this from an experience that I went through in early 2018, March 1st, 2018. I think I might have mentioned this in another video, where I described the day as my self-love upgrade. So at the time I was dating someone, and we had been dating for about 9 months, and I really thought the relationship was going to last for quite some time. And March 1st of that year was just a magical day, and it all happened sitting at my desk, looking outside the window. It was just one of those times. It was around the eclipses, which we're also in right now. And I always ask to receive all the benefit of these astrological events that are happening, because I know they're transforming us if we are open to the invitation and open to want to receive that. So I had that intention in my mind. Someone had sent me a declaration to be of service that I read to myself and ended up being in tears because I so deeply desired that. And then I looked out the window, and here's this hawk sitting on the gate 3 feet away from me, because I was sitting right in front of the window. And it was just events that just transpired that way all day long. It was one of those magical days where you don't even know how it was created, but the only way for me to describe it was my self-love upgrade. And the next day, I knew my relationship was done, because relationships are always mirroring to us the love that we hold within ourselves. So someone else can only love us as much as we love ourselves. And when I went through that self-love upgrade that day, the person I was dating was no longer a pure reflection of the love that I was holding for myself. So that relationship had to dissolve. Because I upgraded my self-love, someone else was going to be a better match for me after that, for the love to show up that was a true reflection of how I was loving myself at the time. And that hasn't happened yet. I'm not in a hurry for that to happen. I know it will come when the time is right and I've fully anchored in to this level of self-love that I'm living with right now. So that's just an example of how we bring into our lives as much love as we can receive, and we offer to others as much love as we can give. So the love is not really in the other person, it's within ourselves, and the other person is just showing us a reflection of that. And that's what they want us to understand here, that when we are in appreciation and acceptance of ourselves, and we allow ourselves to express honestly in the world, there's no need to put on a face of what the world wants to see. So when we are more fully loving ourselves, we don't have to try to fit into that mold like they said. We know that we are perfectly lovable just the way we are. And the more people who can really come to this awareness, the more we can really come to that place of self-love. We only criticize in others what we're truly critical of in ourselves. Again, that's the mirror. It can be really challenging to understand this whole concept of how people are mirroring ourselves back to us. In the beginning, it can be difficult to grasp. But any criticisms that we have are stemming from within. So if we feel like we need to fit a particular mold in order to be loved, it's because we're criticizing aspects of ourselves. And so we're going to cover that up by wearing a mask of not being that person. And as soon as someone can see through that mask, we become shameful almost, like we've been called out for the deceit that we're trying to put in the world. And we all do this. This is not to make you feel bad. This is what we learned as children. In order to fit into our society, we've learned that we have to fit certain molds in order to be loved. As children, we have to develop these characteristics to survive, because we need to be loved by the people who are caring for us. If we're rejected, we may not survive. This is very sort of primitive survival techniques that we develop as children. And then as we mature and we're growing and we want to evolve and become the highest that we can be in this incarnation, then we need to come to understand how all of these things developed and how these societal norms were placed on us that caused us to wear the mask. And now we're in a time where we're being invited to step back into our empowerment, and the first step in that is to accept ourselves just the way we are. We are perfect in every way, and as Henrietta said in this message, even when we do things that we wish we hadn't done, the more we just accept that we're always doing the best we can. I love that mantra. We're always doing the best we can. And next time we'll have an opportunity to try and do it differently. And if we don't, we'll have another opportunity to succeed in doing it differently. And to just accept every part of ourselves that way, so that we can soften and stop being so hard and critical of ourselves, so that we can come back to that place of loving ourselves. And the more you love yourself, the less unlovable you become based on society's interpretations. And what she really is saying is that you're always lovable. You're never unlovable. But again, we're just taught to believe that. I was talking to a neighbor the other day that I met for the first time, and he was sharing lots about his daughter. It was obviously he really loved his daughter, but yet at the end he said, he told her that she was really good today. She wasn't such a good girl yesterday, but she was a good girl today, and she should try to be that good girl tomorrow. And it somewhat broke my heart. I know that child came to that father for the experience that she's having, but in my heart I'm thinking children are always good. We may not like their behavior, but they are always good. And this is the programming that gets laid upon us that causes the pain and suffering, that makes us believe that we're not good in the world and that we're not lovable. And so what Henrietta is saying is that acceptance of ourselves in every moment is how we're going to get back to that place of self-love and self-acceptance. And when we start to see our world show up differently, for example, the relationships that you have in your life, when you start to see that your relationships are respectful and kind and generous and they feel good, then you'll know that you're moving into that place of self-love. And if that's not what you're seeing, then be softer with yourself, be more gentle with yourself, and honor yourself by trusting your heart. If something doesn't feel right, often we can let our intellect get in the way because, let's say, for example, we're in a relationship and we feel on some level like we're not being treated the way we really deserve to be treated, or the person isn't loving us to the level that we really know that we deserve to be loved. But yet we let the mind come in and say, but I need to stay in the relationship for this reason or that reason. And maybe you do. Sometimes there are things to work out in relationship, especially if you're with someone who can be present with you and work these things out with you and take responsibility for their own actions and their own self-care and self-love. Then you can work through it in relationship. And sometimes it needs to end because that person isn't willing to change. And so self-love is honoring yourself enough to move through the mental dialogue that tries to talk you out of it. It's important to trust the heart. And if the heart is saying something isn't right, then either we need to work through it or change it to fully honor the deserving that we know. So I'm saying this to support the intuitive nature of trusting our heart and knowing what we deserve, what we feel we deserve is the truth. So, another thing about self-love is when people are not in relationship, a lot of times people feel really lonely and they find it really hard to say, oh yes, you're supposed to love yourself or feel the love of the divine. And it's kind of frustrating because you want to have that physical experience in the here and now. And I found that a way of managing that is to stay in the now moment and not let the mind say, just because I don't have a partner right now, doesn't mean I will never have a partner again. If we can just stay in the now moment, that right now there's no partner, but that's okay. Right now I can do things that I enjoy. I can be happy to have my own space and just stay in this without going into the future and projecting into the future. Then the more we're content with the now moment, the more we're going to be content with the next moment and the next moment and the next moment. And that contentment in itself is going to allow new experiences to come into our lives that will show us contentment. So it's an interesting dance about self-love and coming to recognize that. But I wanted to share these 3 A's of love and Henrietta's interpretation of that. And I'll just finish up before I move into the light language with another channeled message from Henrietta that really talks about what love truly is in this world when we can get to this point of understanding this. So this is just the last paragraph of another message. How you think you could live without love is merely a reflection of your forgetting. As you go about your day, remember that the energy that keeps you moving is love. As you breathe, remember that you are breathing love. And where did the air for your breath come from? It has passed through the trunks of trees. It has moved through the lungs of lovers as they join in passionate joy. It has nourished a newborn babe taking its first breath. This is the wonder of life. It is all shared. You are not alone. You have breathed the breath of someone on the other side of the world. Is this not love? It is beautiful. It is delight. It is joy. It is heaven. That of which I speak is heaven on earth. All you have to do is remember and hold it in your awareness, and you will create heaven on earth once again. It is so simple. Humans like to complicate things, but it is so simple. Love is all there is. And that message just touches me every time I read it. When I read the whole message, it's so beautiful. And I like to imagine a world where we are all living with that self-love and that self-acceptance, because the hurting of another is only the pain within ourselves. So when we come back to that place of accepting ourselves and then being able to accept everyone in the world, it doesn't mean that we hang out with them all day long, but we accept them, accept that they're on their own path, accept that they're in their own perfection, delight in seeing the quirkiness in others, that maybe we don't even understand it, but we can find joy in witnessing it. And the more we all come to be living in that energy, the world will become a place of peace. We will have that 1,000 years of peace that's being predicted. We will get to that by finding love within ourselves. And I've written a book channeled by the Council of Nine called The Spiritual Seeker's Guide to Happiness. And one of the things they say in that book over and over really is that we need to forget about being selfish. That word has been used to create shame when we want to fill ourselves up. As children want everything they see because they don't know the lack of not receiving. They know that they deserve to receive. And this selfishness is used to turn them away from that and teach them that's not true. And the Council of Nine said we need to be self-full in order to be able to truly give love into the world. Again, we can only give as much as we have within ourselves. And so the more love we have for ourselves, and this is not narcissistic love, this is pure self-love that wants to be of service to the all. And the more full we are, the more love we have to give. So I'll move into offering some light language to help us all open up to that love of the self, open up to accepting ourselves so that we can love ourselves more and more fully with each passing day, with each passing now moment, with each present now moment. Yakla mekia lakwa ich kana atwa etka. O wakta ke ho ila awa ikana achma ikna aqua e. O teiki naki ma'alwa atna. Yakta ka chi kala. U kala makati wa I. Achka I na kalawa e. Uktika hamika atwi inaka nchka na awa e. Yaktaka I makatli ikna atwa ikna atwa ikka atwa I. Waktika ikna atwichka na amkana amma. Imaktika ichka na atwi la atwichka ah. Yaktaka uchka tikka achka itka ah. Iktka atwichka atwichka uchka ah. Yakla I akna I oktak iktuk tu. Yakla I maka achwa kikna. Achwa kikna Uchka, ikna, achka, uktak, ah, iktka, akra, iktka, ta. And so it is, beloveds. And so it is our great joy and delight to touch you with these tones of love, the opening of grace, the awakening of humanity at this great time of transition on this earth. We come before you in joy and delight, for we say to you, dear ones, that so much is transpiring in the evolution of light, in the evolution of love. And yes, so much is falling apart. And yet, when you are able to witness the falling away, and to understand that the old must crumble, and to focus your eyes on the light of the sun and the joy of the age that is upon you, then you will allow the awakening of your own soul into this beautiful radiant light that you are. And the more of you that awaken and blossom like a beautiful garden, coming alive in the summer, then the more you will see the beauty that is replacing the old that is falling away. Keep your eyes on the light, beloveds. Keep your hearts open. Be kind to one another. Be kind to yourselves. Be generous in your heart. First and foremost, generous to yourself. We are here with you in every moment. Call upon us to assist you whenever you feel the need for support, for love, for grace, for joy, for light. And rest in these tones. Carry them with you this day to awaken the joy and the light and the love that you are. And so it is, beloveds. And so it is. I'm receiving and feeling so much energy in my hands, so much light that I don't want to close them into prayer position. I just want to let this flow. So as this flows, I would invite you to subscribe, and also underneath in the description, I will put a link to my book if you would like to read Conversations with the Tree and hear more of these beautiful messages about love and quantum physics. There's so many profound messages in there. And also, I have a new channeling course on my website, so I'll put a link to that if you would like to begin to open up the abilities for yourself to channel and bring through the divine. We are always more blessed with our own wisdom and the messages that come through our own way of being in the world. So thank you so much for listening, for being present, and for being a part of this beloved community that is bringing the light into the earth at this time, awakening our brilliance and remembering the love that we truly are. So much love to you.